Hello, everyone. Welcome to Black Man Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, the Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday, October the 9th, 2024, and if it is Wednesday night,
And it's certainly Black Man Speak.
yes,
I want
sir.
to give a big shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. And if you haven't already, please hit that like button to help our numbers. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you can be notified when new shows are uploaded, which is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Of course, the show starts on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Time. If you're here watching it live, invite a friend, a family member, or a coworker so you guys have something interesting to talk about for the rest of the week. With that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best, which is bring the most informative information about the Black community to the internet.
All right, folks, we are going to start off with a great show for this evening. And, we have had a lot of giants to take on the realm of ancestors. And Jimmy, it seems to be someone every week and not someone insignificant. This past week, actually a couple of days ago, we lost the great Sissy Houston. For those of you who kind of study gospel and or truly know a great singer, she was one of them, a two-time Grammy award-winning soul and gospel artist who sang with the greats like Aretha Franklin, Elvis Presley, and many others, and was the mother, of course, to the Whitney Houston. She became an ancestor this past Monday at the tender age of 91. She passed while in hospice, Jimmy, for Alzheimer's disease.
Mm.
Yeah, a church performer from a very early age, Houston was part of a family gospel act before breaking through into popular music in the 1960s as a member of the prominent backup group The Sweet Inspirations with Doris Troy and her niece Dee Dee Ward. The group sang backup for a variety of soul singers such as the great Otis Redding, Lou Rawls, who I call Lou Draws, and the Drifters, in addition to Dionne Warwick. Houston's many credits include Aretha Franklin's Think, You Made Me Feel Like a Natural Woman,
Yes.
Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl, and Dusty Springfield's Son of a Preacher Man. Houston became an in-demand session singer and recorded more than 600 songs, Jimmy, 600 songs in multiple genres throughout her career. Her vocals can be heard on tracks alongside a wide range of artists, including Chaka Khan, Donny Hathaway, one of my favorites, and our fraternity brother, Jimi Hendrix, Luther Vandross, Beyonce, Paul Simon, Roberta Flack, and of course, her daughter, the great Whitney Houston. So we have truly lost a giant this past week, Jimmy. And for those, of course, who are in the gospel world, who are in the singing world, who, of course, follow entertainment and great music, um, we send our prayers to the Houston family, her loved ones, and those who followed and loved her and her music throughout the years. So
That is true.
we do have a couple of folks on the chat line. For those of you who are out there watching right now, jump on the YouTube chat line. We have Cousin Audrey K. Good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Of course, we have Miss Tanya Hall, who is also on the chat line today. Want to thank you for joining us. And of course, if you haven't, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. Make sure, of course, you like this show so we can spread to other folks. So let's get it started, Jimmy. We got to start out with some sports. We kind of ended up with a little sports last week. We're going to start off because there's a lot to talk about in both college and professional football, Jimmy. And we're going to start off with college. One of your favorite college teams this past week, Jimmy, the Alabama Crimson Tide
Roll
was
Tide.
was stunned and upset by the unranked Vanderbilt Commodores. Alabama just getting into the number one slot this past week after beating Georgia in a dynamic game the week before, Jimmy, and the unthinkable happened. Until this past Saturday, Vanderbilt had lost all 60 of their games against AP top 5 ranked teams, hadn't beaten Alabama in over 40 years. And Jimmy, this has to be probably the greatest win in that football team's history.
Yes, it is, Tom. So it wasn't a fluke. I mean, they outright won. Alabama, not to make excuses for them, does have a lot of freshmen, a couple on the line and at the corners. So the secondary is really young, but they'll be okay. This is why it's a good thing that we went to a 12-team format
Yep.
in the playoffs, because before this, when it was a 14 playoff, this kind of loss would just knock you out of the playoff contention. Be very difficult to bounce back from a one loss, especially when the other teams out there are undefeated. So I think Alabama will be in the top 12. They'll be in the playoffs. Um, so one or two losses is not going to now all of a sudden keep you from advancing to the playoffs. But congratulations to Vanderbilt for their play in 10 times. It's not going to be too much easier. I mean, Alabama still has to play Tennessee, which is top ranked also. They go for a lot of fourth downs, and they're a pretty tough team to beat. Also, they're undefeated.
And the interesting thing about this game, Jimmy, is that this wasn't one of those things where it was a one of those defensive games, not that many points. Some fluke happened, some accidental. Even though I think there may have been an interception that kind of popped up into the air. But I mean, if you look at the minutes, Jimmy, Vanderbilt had the ball for 42 minutes compared to Alabama, which Alabama had the ball 17 minutes. That is absolutely unthinkable that Vanderbilt would actually control the ball for 42 minutes. You know, played solid defense. Of course, Jalen Milroe is, one of the candidates that they're talking about for the Heisman Trophy this year. And this was just a starter. Some people, and I want to get your opinion on this, as to who's most at fault. You could say Vanderbilt. You could say Georgia, because, of course, Alabama came off of a pretty rigorous game last week. They won by the nick of their teeth when Georgia came back, and maybe the letdown from the Georgia game. Or some might say it's Nick Saban. Nick Saban made a little snide comment about Vanderbilt being the only place that's kind of an easy game.
No, I'll tell you, none of the above, Tom. Vanderbilt just played a better game. They controlled the clock. They ran the ball. Um, Alabama has a lot of talent, especially that wide receiver, freshman wide receiver number two. I think his name is Williams. They can score very quickly. So even though they were down 13-0 early on in the first quarter, they didn't seem to panic. They came back. They scored. And did what they had to do to kind of get back into the game, into the thrust of it. But the problem was like the second half of the Georgia game, the defense just couldn't stop Vanderbilt. So that became the whole game right there. Just on defense, they couldn't get off the field, and Vandy continued to score and push the score up. So, like I said, it was a good game to watch. Um, Hopefully they'll bounce back. We'll see what happens on the next game. So, but I think fortunate for Alabama is that the playoff was expanded to 12 games, so they still have a chance. Whether they win the SEC or not, they'll still be in the top 12 easily. They win out, or even if they drop another game from here, go 9-2 or 10-2. So nobody's to blame, Tom. All the credit goes to Vanderbilt for playing a good game, and that's just the way it goes in the SEC. A lot of some really good teams.
And this is why, SEC, of course, is considered the toughest, football conference to play in. I mean, if you look at the other games, I mean, the top 15 were literally shaken up this week. You had Alabama at number one, losing to an unranked Vandy. You got my alma mater, Texas A&M, who beats, Texas A&M was at 25. They beat they didn't just beat number 9 Missouri. They ran over Missouri this past week, beat them 41-10. Missouri was ranked number 9. There is no way that a number 9 ranked team should be getting beat 41-10, a 31-point spread. You had an unranked Arkansas defeats number 4 Tennessee, 19-14. That was a pretty good game. I saw that. You had an unranked Washington defeats a number 10 ranked Michigan, and Minnesota unranked defeats number 11 ranked USC. And just as a side, number 8 Miami barely beats University of California.
Yeah, Tom, so it goes that way. There's a lot of parity due to that transfer portal, players moving around, and a lot of players from top teams that are not getting playing time are transferring to other schools where they can play. So there's a lot more parity now because of the transfer portal. And Nick Saban didn't really have to deal with the transfer portal too much
Yep.
because it was only in effect for a year or two before he decided to retire and leave college football. But we should see a lot of really good college football from here on because of that parity. So don't put too much into the rankings because an unranked team can knock off a top 10 or a top 5 team if everything falls in their way and they have a good game and the other team has a social game. So it but it does make for really good football watching if you're into watching college football.
I would agree with you on that with Jimmy. And again, congratulations to Vanderbilt. They played a solid game. They did not go in thinking that, of course, this game was over their head just because it was Alabama. They played fundamental good football, and really shout outs to their defense because for Alabama to be a solid team, they typically have the hogs, on the interior line on offense and defense. For them to be minimized to 17 minutes controlling the ball is really
They don't run the ball as well as they used to. So with Milrow there, and like I said, number two Williams, they've really rely on their passing game to score their points. And so if you can't run the ball, you can't control the clock.
agreed. And
They're a decent running team, but they're not a powerhouse running team like they used to be. And
but this is not that different. I could see, Jimmy, if this was Georgia. I could see if this was possibly Tennessee. I mean, every now and again, Alabama even sneaks up and beats. Auburn sneaks up and beats Alabama. In the Iron Bowl. But for a team that is typically, hats off to Vanderbilt. Usually, this is a team that folks want to schedule for their homecoming. They one hell of a game. Congratulations to the Commodores. I think this is the greatest thing, in my opinion, about them expanding the playoff to 12 because it's the teams that are at their height and playing their best at the end of the year who actually deserve to get in. But over the last several years, as far as we can think, it's always been who the selection committee picks, and I think this definitely fixes that. And I think this course is going to make the sport a lot better and a lot funner, and everybody's going to make money.
So let's move on to the how about those Cowboys?
Well, why don't we first, since it's about a quarter after, why don't we go to a how about that music contest, and then we can go to how about them Cowboys.
Okay, if that's how you want to roll, we can do that first. Go ahead and do the rules.
So,
and I'll cue up the first song.
All right, we've got a song coming up. The first person that identifies the artist of record gets a point. The first person that identifies the official name of the song gets a point. If you actually identify both of them, you get 2 points. We will do this a quarter after the hour and a quarter until, of course, 9 p.m. And then as a special, halfway through the show, we will have a movie contest. But right now it's the music contest. Also, what we will be doing as opposed to identifying the artist and the song of record on the chat line, we will be asking you to text it to the number that is showing up below, 346-666-6829. Again, get your phones ready. The number that you will be texting the answers to are 346-666-6829, and it's the first one that comes out with either or both of these correct that you will get the points. All right, Jimmy, let's get this party started right.
All right, everybody, get your phones out, get your fingers ready, because here we go.
In magazines, but you still be my star, baby, 'cause in the dark, you can't see shiny cars, and that's when you need me there, with you I'll always share, because when the sunshine, we shine together.
folks.
folks.
All right, let's get the answers in. You now have 30 seconds to come up with an answer. Again, text your answers to 346 666 6829. All right, I am waiting. And again, we will be only taking answers. All right, 30 seconds is over with. And Jimmy, are you getting responses on your end? Because I am not. I have gotten 346 666 6829. We have Miss Chastity, who has actually responded on the chat line. And Ms. T. Hall has also responded on the chat line, but I am not getting responses on my mobile phone. Are you, Jimmy?
I haven't got a response on the mobile phone either, but so what do we have on the chat line?
Okay, right now we have, let me see, the first person, we have Miss Tanya, who identified the artist of record as Miss Rihanna, and Miss Tanya, who has identified the official name of the song, which is Umbrella. So she is actually the first person to get both.
Okay.
We have Miss Chastity, who also got Umbrella, maybe 4 seconds. Wow, after Miss Tanya. So it looks like Miss Tanya got both the artist of record and the name of the song correct. Last week, okay, we got a question from last week, Miss Carol. Miss Carol won the song from last week, and Uncle Asar won the movie selection from last week.
Carol, keep it down. We got a show going on. It's a family show.
All right.
Okay, so we got a 2-point winner. Congratulations.
Gotcha. And I am not getting anything on the text.
Okay.
So we need to figure out how to get that fixed. This is a new platform we're using, and it doesn't look like.
Well, we tested it last week, and it seemed like everything was working, but I'll check the logs, and see if anyone actually texts in on the line. So
Right.
it'll still be captured on the server. So if we have to make a revision, we will. We have the timestamps from the chat line and from the log, so we can make a comparison. So
Gotcha.
right now, this time is a tentative winner, but we'll announce next week whether it's official or not. So let's move on. Let's talk about those Cowboys, team.
All right, Jimmy. Now we're going to go to NFL. We've got a couple of interesting stories in the NFL. We want to give a shout out to a couple of folks. Thanks, Miss Chastity, for jumping on the line. Thank you for Miss Carol jumping on the line. Oh, Miss Dominique from the ATL is on the line. Thank you for jumping on with us. Frederick V. Roberts from Prairie View, Texas, is also jumped on the line as well. And I believe I've gotten everyone as for right now. So let's go ahead and get to professional sports, Jimmy. We had a game this past Monday between, of course, well, there are a couple of games I want to talk about. We'll talk about the Cowboys and the Steelers. Also, Jimmy, we had the Ravens and the Cincinnati. That was a great showdown. Interesting news. The first coach has been fired for this year, and we want to talk about that rookie who's making it happen for a couple of minutes as well. But first, we'll talk about your Cowboys, Jimmy. They had a pretty interesting game and pulled it out in one of the, I guess, all-time classic matchups of the NFL between the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cowboys pulling it out in the very end, 20-17.
So, yes, team, they had over 100 yards rushing, even though it was rushing by committee. Any team that commits 3 turnovers and have a block field goal in the NFL, generally is going to lose. You can put some money, and probably 95% of the time that's going to be a loss. But the Cowboys were able to hang in there and grind it out. And games like that show character because the Pittsburgh Steelers had a really good defense. They don't give up points easily. They don't give up yards easily. They have really good pass rusher and Watts, really good secondary, and they play really tough defense. So this is not a doormat team that the Cowboys are able to beat, and hopefully it was a turning point for the Cowboys that they're capable of grinding it out against really good teams. So this may be one of their most impressive victories of the season, the most impressive win of the season, by beating a really good Pittsburgh Steelers team.
Well, I'll say this, Jimmy. I was actually surprised, given that the Cowboys are typically always one player from falling apart as a
Yeah,
team.
the two pass rushers are out.
There were three players out this year. Of course, you got D-Law, DeMarcus, both of their edge rushers. Of
Right.
course, you had DeMarcus Lawrence, and then you had, of course, Jesus, and his name is
Number 11,
yeah,
Michael Parker.
there you go,
Parsons.
Micah Parsons, All Pro. You had DeMarcus Lawrence, their other edge rushers, both of them under pretty healthy contracts. Of course, their number 2 receiver is down as well, Jimmy. And they found out, I've got to give Mike Zimmer some credit. He found out a way to actually re-engineer the scheme such that he was able to pretty well manage the Pittsburgh Steelers run game.
I don't know if he re-engineered the scheme, Tom, but what he did was they had to play a lot more players, younger players, and rotate them in and out
Right.
with a lot more playing time. And so a lot of those players actually showed up and made plays. So
Well, why haven't they been doing that before? Because they've been getting run over by decent teams.
Yeah, they've been playing on the starters. They hadn't rotated the younger guys in as much. They're trying to find safe spots to put them in. But when you have two major players out on defense, and you have to be concerned about the number of snaps for these young players, you can't overexpose them. But so they're kind of forced to throw some young players in. And some of these young players really showed up big. It may, they keep playing like this. There may not be a rush for DeMarcus Ware and for Parker to come back. You may say, take your time and heal up.
Well, Jimmy, I may have to hold off on that, Jimmy, because, if you look at who they played, they won against what we now know is a very bad Browns team. They got blown out by the New Orleans Saints, who is a better than average team, not a great team. They got beat. They got beat by the Ravens, but really the Ravens let up at the end of that game. They beat a very mediocre Giants team at best, just 20-15. And in my opinion, they beat a maybe better than average Pittsburgh Steelers team, who the record, I think, is a little bit better than they will be long term until they lost this game. I think the Steelers are 3-2. The Cowboys are 3-2 right now. But they're still trying to figure out their quarterback situation right now. Of course, the Steelers have a very solid defense. But, they have, in terms of their receiving core, Jimmy, I would say that they ain't showing up yet. They've got a decent run game. But look at who the Cowboys have to face. The Lions, who are solid again this year. They have to play the 49ers, who probably by the time the Cowboys play them will be ready. They got to play the Falcons, who are actually doing better than everybody's expected this year. The Eagles, who everybody thought was going to win the division, but that might change given what we're looking at now. They got to play the Texans, who are very solid, and then the Commanders. So the next 6 games, Jimmy, is going to show the Cowboys who they are and who they are.
Yes, it will. Like I said, this is a gut check game, so we'll see what the Cowboys are about. But if they continue to tap into their good fortune, play a lot of the young players, starting to mileage out of them now, that having 2 of your stars on defense out may not be as bad of an impact as we think. Because generally in the past, like you said, Cowboys lose a player or two, all the wheels come off the train. They generally can't recover from injuries. But now they may have a little depth that they didn't realize that they had. And so that becomes a really good thing.
Well, they will definitely be tested, not just their front line or their interior line on defense, Jimmy, but they will also be tested on their defensive backfield, because Jared Goff, even though at one point in time they were ready to throw him out for a bag of popcorn, of course, he got them almost to win within one game from the Super Bowl last year. And so Jared Goff is playing well this year. And in addition to that, the Detroit Lions have always played the Cowboys pretty good. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the better receivers in the NFL. So we'll see what gives this week end when they play the Lions. Even when the Lions are doing poorly, they typically play the Cowboys pretty tough. And now they actually have a solid team. So they'll know what they're dealing with, I think, after this week for sure.
Well, not just on defense, Tom. Like I said, this is the first game they've actually put together over 100 yards rushing to be able to control the clock a little bit, especially when they ran the ball and they had to. They didn't just have to throw the ball 40, 50 times and rely on Dak. Just like I said, had a couple of turnovers, 2 interceptions, they had a blocked field goal. And, I think they may have 3 interceptions. I think they had 3 turnovers and a block. So this showed a lot of character on their part. So we'll see how they respond next week, whether they ride the momentum into next week or they fall back into typical ways. So why don't you let's finish up the NFL, Tom, because I want to spend a minute or two talking about the WNBA.
All right.
Impact of,
okay, well, we got a couple of things to talk about, and we'll make it very brief. Obviously, the biggest news this week after the games was, of course, the New York Jets firing their head coach, I think in his 3rd year, Robert Saleh. And this was after the New York Jets, who just picked up or who just traded, of course, for one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers, last year, but they've had the last 2 years, 2 7-win seasons. Last year was supposed to be the season until Aaron Rodgers got injured. They are now 2-3 after losing to really the only undefeated team left in the NFC, Minnesota Vikings. I think they were in London or something of that nature. And after going 2-3, Jimmy, they fired Jeff Saleh in his 3rd year.
Well, Tom, they probably should have. The reason I say that is, once again, this league, if you're going to make it a quarterback league, you have to adjust now. And the adjustment is teams are putting a lot of motion and shifting into their offense to try to disrupt the defense to make their offense a little more unpredictable. The Jets don't play that. I mean, Aaron Rodgers didn't play that type of football back in Green Bay. He definitely doesn't like that style of football now. But Aaron Rodgers is 41, 42 years old. He's a dinosaur, Tom.
True.
And if you're going to counter a dinosaur, that dinosaur better be ready to deliver you to the promised land. And Aaron Rodgers is not quite ready under the way things are done now. The successful teams, they shift, they move, they put players in motion. And the Cowboys were the same way, but Cowboys started doing the same thing. They started putting players in motion. They're starting to shift a little bit more than they traditionally do. And by doing that, they were able to open up and have a little bit of a semblance of a running game. That's what the league is now, Tom. That's where young coaches understand that, and a lot of dinosaur coaches don't. And there's some young coaches that don't understand either. They're trying to stick to designing an offense around their players. But all that's going to do is get you fired because you won't be successful.
I would say this. I thought this was an interesting move by Woody Johnson, the owner of the New York Jets. Everybody knows Robert Saleh is a defensive head coach, defensive-minded coach. He was a DC defensive coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers. They brought Aaron Rodgers to the Jets in order to lead the offensive scheme, of course. Aaron Rodgers dictated bringing the offensive coordinator to the New York Jets. That was his decision, so they yielded to him. Aaron Rodgers, quite frankly, has not been having a great season thus far, 5 games in. And so I'm just very curious that if I get it, it's now, not next year, not the year after that, but they made a decision to yield to Aaron Rodgers and yielded to some of his decisions. They've not gotten the results they got. How is that the coach's fault if, quite frankly, the owner is opening the door, probably like one Jerry Jones, to bringing in a quarterback in an all-in strategy that you get rid of the head.
It's always the coach's fault when you don't win. So
it ain't always the coach's fault.
I don't care how much the owner interferes. I don't care how much the GM interferes. It's always the coach's fault. You either put your foot down.
Otherwise, he's the fall guy when it's not his fault.
Well, he's going to take the credit if it works out. He's going to take the fall if it doesn't work out.
I would say this.
If it's your job on the line, your livelihood, you have to speak up and be able to put your foot down. If you can't make key decisions, you got to decide if you're going to just be there for a paycheck and go along to get a paycheck, or you're going to put your foot down, go against the grain, and potentially be fired for belligerence or going against the owner's wishes. But at least that way you can say, hey, I never agree with this. I didn't want this. If you're going to override me, then go find another coach. So the outcome is going to be the same. If it doesn't work out, you're going to be on the chopping block regardless.
Well, I don't think Robert Saleh is going to have a difficult time finding another job as a DC or something of that nature. Obviously, he was very well respected coming from the San Francisco 49ers coaching tree. I just thought it was, 5 games going in. You have a Aaron Rodgers who, of course, had an Achilles.
Coming from San Francisco, he knew better. He knows better. You're going back to an ancient offense in this league. And he knows what success looks like on offense coming from the 49ers. The 49ers don't play that style of football. And so in teams that play a motion type offense are more successful than those that are just static. He knows that. So because he didn't put his foot down and stand his ground to do what he knows to do to win, to be successful, he deserves to get fired.
Well, we would have to disagree on that one.
They brought in,
Aaron Rodgers brought in Nathaniel Hackett, not
Aaron Rodgers is not the coach.
I know
that.
I get that. But what I'm suggesting to you is this. They lean toward him because if they're giving Aaron Rodgers that much money, if they're basically giving him the keys to the offensive side, which is in essence what they did, he made the call on the offensive coordinator, and they got not a completely a goose egg right now, but they're definitely not performing. You also have to understand Aaron Rodgers is coming off of an Achilles heel injury. So quite frankly, even though he's out there, he ain't 100% mentally as well, even though obviously, he's a good quarterback. But again, when you throw 3 picks, Jimmy, that ain't Robert Saleh's fault if you throw 3 picks.
Yeah, it is his fault, Tom, for putting Aaron Rodgers on the field.
So what you're going to say is the quarterback that they put all in on, they're not going to put on the field. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying you put the best player on the field who's ready to help you win games. And you put the best system in place that helps you win games. You don't go against what you know to be best practice all over one player. And that's what they did, Tom. He sold his soul for a paycheck because he went against what he knew to be the best way to win games, put them in a position to win. And that the team doesn't deserve that, or the players don't deserve that. The fans that follow them don't deserve that. So he deserves to get fired. I don't know why you trying. You can put this all on Aaron Rodgers if you want to, but
I'm not even putting it on Aaron Rodgers. What I am saying is this: you show me one team that Aaron Rodgers is going to be sitting the bench on. One, other than maybe the Kansas City Chiefs. He's not going to be sitting the bench behind any quarterback other than maybe Patty Holmes.
Well, you know what? If he's the best player to go out there and help you win games, he deserves to be on the field. If he's not, Pat's reputation means nothing in today's game. It's the bottom of the hour, Tom, so I still have one more sports story.
Right, WNBA.
You want to move now and come back and take your beating on the WNBA?
We can move on. We can move on. We just agree to disagree.
Let's do our movie, and then you're gonna come. You got these slice of humble pie when you come back, Tom.
All right.
Movie. Here we go. Still use the chat line,
so we're using the chat line, not the phone.
No, I'm sorry, not the chat line. Use the text line. So
okay, so we are using the. Now you made the call on getting the chat line, so I called that out. But we're using the 346-666-6829 number. Is that what you're saying, Jimmy?
Yes.
Okay, you hear that, folks? 346-666-6829. He's gonna have to go back and look at what the platform is saying.
I know. I rebooted the server, so I think something may have been hung on it. But let's let's just hope it's not going to be egg on my face. But go ahead and text your answers into the phone number.
All right.
See that chat line. Here we
All
go
right.
for our movie.
Let's go.
Looking for the owner, Benny.
I'm Benny. And again, who the fuck are you?
Oh, could you give us one moment, please? Yo, what is wrong with you?
She picked up a bat.
Okay, so what you gonna do? You gonna break her fingers too? You can't beat up a woman.
Why not?
Because she's a woman. That's like misogynistic.
You the one being misogynistic. I ain't mentioning her gender. You the one bringing up her being a woman and shit. I don't give a fuck about her gender.
Okay.
I'm an equal opportunity ass woman.
Okay, just can I handle this? Thank you. Hi, Betty. We don't want any trouble. You know, we just came to ask you just a couple questions.
I guess he got his misogynistic, huh?
You got his answer the hard way, Tom.
All right, Jimmy, we got one response in, and I think I know who it is. Let's see here. All right, I've got one response, Jimmy. What about you? Okay, I got a second response. So it looks like you rebooting the system did clear the cache. And the first person I have coming in, Jimmy, and I want to make sure we're on the same page. The last four digits, 6249.
If that is you, text is your name.
So what?
Yes, I have the same thing, 6249.
Okay.
Text is your name so we'll know who to give credit to.
That would be Uncle Azar.
Really? Uncle
Yes.
Sar. That movie aficionado. So, Tom,
Yes.
are you ready to eat a slice of humble pie?
About what?
Okay, this is a WNBA story.
All right.
Of course, you're not going to want to hear this as as honorary chairman of the Caitlin Clark Hater Club.
Oh, I'm not an honorary chair. I don't hate nobody.
Uh,
I don't hate nobody. I just call out the facts.
so you know she won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I do
Unanimously.
that. Yep.
All the sports raters. There was no second, third, no place for anybody else.
No, there was somebody who got pissed off because she didn't get unanimous. But yes, she did win a Rookie of the Year.
No, she won unanimously.
Well, somebody must do that because I know I was listening to something and somebody got pissed off because it wasn't a unanimous vote.
No, it was a unanimous vote. All the sports writers,
Right, very good.
AP. The only other player to get that honor time as a rookie was who? Ding, 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 ding. Michael Jordan. So she's already in great company to start with. Tom, she was 8th in scoring, 5th in rebounding, and number 1 in assists. She broke over 63 records this year. And then she was 4th in the MVP votes. And Angel Reese wasn't even in consideration for MVP.
Yep, and she got injured towards the end of the year.
So here's the good news for all the haters out there for Clark. She is seriously considering leaving the WNBA and going to play in Europe.
Makes sense to me.
Now, let me share this financial news with you. Ion Television gave them a decent TV contract, which they may opt out because it was a 4-year deal, but they had opt out after each season, so that may happen. She sold out arenas everywhere she went, averaging over 17,000. Teams would move to larger arenas, from their college arenas to their pro arenas, and they were selling tickets like crazy. The last 1,000 tickets generally went for about $5,000, and they would still sell out even at those prices. And Tom, Connecticut knocked Indiana out of the playoffs. They average about 2 million viewers on TV and over 18,000 in attendance at the games. Now Connecticut is averaging 300,000 viewers, down from 2 million, and they can't even sell out a 6,500 seat arena where they're now averaging 1,800 in attendance for their playoff games. So all the haters out there who want to run Caitlin Clark out of the league, y'all may get y'all wish, but it may come at a heavy price because the perks of flying charter on private planes and not flying coach, eating at hotels, eating at nice restaurants, may all come to the end time because this may be the first season that the WNBA actually turned a profit. And that may all be lost because you ran the golden goose away from the league. And so all of the players out there who think that she was overhyped and just marketing, such as yourself, because you said many times that somehow she didn't have talent and people were not paying and watching. Personally, Tom, I watched about 10 games this year for the WNBA, which is 10 more than I watched the previous 23-year history of the WNBA. And it wasn't because of Angel Reese, it wasn't because of Aja, it wasn't because of Wilson, it wasn't because of any of those other players. It was because of one player that I wanted to watch, and I wasn't alone. So I'm going to give you the last word. We're going to close our sports because I know we have a couple other stories that we can
Yes,
get
we do.
to. What say you, Tom? Humble pie, eat some. Get a nice big slice of it.
No, there's no humble pie there's no humble pie to eat here. I think that Caitlin Clark is a good player, better than average player. Obviously.
Good player.
I said good player. She's not the best. She's not the number one, number two, or the number three player in the league right now, but she's definitely a very good player. I think that overall the league has probably invested more money into promoting her and the league than probably any other time in history. And quite frankly, good for her and good for the league. The reality of it is, if they would put that money into the league so that they would understand the faces, the matchups, the games, and the relevance, then they would probably be better off. And I don't know that the NBA has ever really made a profit. I don't know that one player is going to make a difference. And so when you look at other sports, when you look at the NBA, when you look at the NFL, God forbid the MLB, when it was at its height, it was about matchups. It was about great games. It was about series.
It's not about matchups. Great games, Tom.
You said
WNBA.
Jimmy, you said let me go, so I'm going, and I'll keep going. It's about matchups. It's about great teams. It's about great series, not about one person in the entire league. It has never been about one person for any particular league in order to be successful. All that being said, I wish her the best. Most WNBA players go to other leagues in Europe because that's where they make the money. They don't make it in the WNBA. And the reality of it is, that's the way it always has been. Maybe they'll be able to get over that hump. But if they do it is because it's about the league, not one specific player. Even when you had a Magic Johnson, even when you had a Larry Bird, even when you had a LeBron James, even when you had a Kobe Bryant, even when you had, a Tom Brady, it wasn't about that individual. It was about the league. It was about the matchups. Hopefully they figure that out.
Well, the NBA, Tom, has talent. The WNBA doesn't.
Oh,
so
Jim, come on.
Hold on, Tom. So let me correct you, because it is about one player in this particular case. No one gave two rat's asses for women's basketball in college until Caitlin Clark came along. The Eyes of the Soul, Men in the Eyes of the Soul book club, which you and I belong to, got together to watch Iowa play UConn. It was about 12, 15 men there. And why? You either came there to see Caitlin Clark win or to see her lose. But Tom, we have never, ever, in 20-plus year history of Eyes of the Soul, where the men have got together to watch the women's championship basketball.
I wasn't there.
Huh?
I wasn't there.
You were there.
Not to see them play UConn.
What were you there for, Tom?
I wasn't. No, Jimmy. Not you were there. I was not there to watch them play
You would not meet.
I didn't see that game. I didn't see that game.
We met over in Addison.
But Jimmy, we watched the men's game. I did not see that women's game.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see what the attendance looks like for this year coming up when Caitlin Clark is not in college basketball. Tom, it's going to go back to nobody cares. This was the first year that the women's championship got more viewers than the men's championship. So someone cared about watching her. And on top of that, Tom, like I said, she doesn't need the money. And the team in the NBA, WNBA did not promote her. They promoted Aja for winning MVP.
Yeah, but that's not true.
Said nothing.
If somebody blew her hair out of place, you got Jimmy. Jimmy, let's be very.
They said nothing.
Jimmy, let's talk about.
They said nothing about her winning Rookie of the Year unanimously.
No. We're talking about earlier this year when before she even played a game, the first couple of games. I mean, literally, you were getting 2 or 3 things a day about Caitlin Clark. A foul. I'm like, really, a foul?
Yeah, she being knocked down, hit elbow, punched in the face. She blew her ear out. Someone punched her and knocked the eardrum out. She got a black eye. teams are going after her with excessive
Jimmy,
fouls just to
anybody,
knock her out.
Jimmy,
And we
you have
say,
no
yeah, they show
idea
so.
because
On
you
top of
haven't.
that, she doesn't need the money. Other players may go to Europe for to get a decent paycheck. She has a $28 million deal with Nike. She just signed another $47 million deal with another Seth Curry apparel company is backed by Armour. So she doesn't need the money. She's going to Europe and she may not come back. So we'll see if the WNBA survives without Caitlin Clark. I'm going to predict they're not, Tom, that they're going to go back to losing money. They're going to go back to the way things
They've always been losing money.
Irrelevant.
They've always been losing money, and they're losing money this year. Let's move forward.
Tom, they're not
Because we
losing
do
money.
have a couple of other stories.
This may be the first year they actually turn a profit, but we know that they're not making money now because viewership, the TV deal is way down, advertising is way down. Anyway, that is mine. I gave you a chance to eat humble pie to take it back what you said, but you're doubling down on it.
Take back, and there's no humble pie to eat, Jimmy.
Yeah, you're doubling down on it.
Jimmy, we got 13 minutes and we got 3 stories. Okay.
Yeah, she's the greatest force to women's basketball we've ever seen, and you just don't want to give her due. Anyway, what's our next story, T?
Our next story is another the great of all time when it comes to basketball.
Well, actually, before we do that, we do have another song now, Tom. Because I gave you said eat humble pie, you took too long.
No, Jimmy,
you talk
Jimmy, you talk too long. That's the problem. You don't let anybody finish anything.
I didn't let you finish. I said you had almost last word.
You interrupted every time I started talking.
I only interrupt you one time and then I shut up, Tom. Anyway, let's do our next song, T, and so that we can finish up with our last few stories. Let's get this out of the way. Here we go, folks.
As she turned the border, night cold of Jordan, I felt so much shame when it wasn't you. Wasn't you? No, you are everything, and everything is you. Oh, you are everything. Everything is you. Oh, you are everything. Everything is you.
All right, Jimmy, we now have 30 seconds in order to get our responses in on the text line 346-666-6829.
Okay, anybody?
All right, we're still waiting.
It is an oldie, but it's a classic.
All right, we got we got the first person on the name of the song, and that is the Ringer. So we are out of time, and we got one person to respond that I see. Same number, and that would be Uncle Asar. You are everything. I did not get a response on the artist of record.
Okay.
But I'm going to get the name of the song, which is "You Are Everything," and for everyone who wants to know out there, the artist of record, the Stylistics.
All right.
All right, folks. Let's go ahead and move on to our next.
What's our next story, T?
All right, MJ, the greatest of all time in basketball, now, of course, a businessman, is battling against the largest spectator sports in the league, NASCAR, the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, aka NASCAR. He is seeking to diversify his sports portfolio. For those of you who may not have been aware that he was in racing, his team called 2311, along with another racing team, Front Row Motorsports, is suing NASCAR for what they consider anti-competitive business terms. How it looks like that the former Chicago Bulls superstar joined the league in 2020, launching his own sports racing team, celebrated by many drivers on his team. They signed initial terms with NASCAR in 2016. However, 2 years ago, NASCAR made term changes set to take effect in 2025. Both Jordan's teams, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, disagreed with these new provisions and are filing a former suit. In the joint agreement, the racing team states, "We share the passion for racing, the thrill of competition and winning. Off the racetrack, we share a belief that change is necessary for the sport we love. Together, we brought this antitrust case so that racing can thrive and become a more competitive and fair sport in ways that will benefit the teams, the drivers, the sponsors, and most importantly, the fans." And the antitrust practice issue includes the acquisition of the majority of the tracks controlled by one family, imposing exclusive deals on NASCAR sanctioned racetracks. ARCA, which was the only competition that is now owned by NASCAR, prohibiting teams from racing in other stock races and forcing teams to buy all of their parts from single source suppliers.
So why is this a story, Tom?
Further stating that no other professional sport in North America sport is run by a single family that enriches themselves through unchecked monopolistic practices.
So why is this a story, Tom?
This is a story, one, because one of the things that we say is, our community is into things other than just football and basketball. Obviously, we know that Michael Jordan is one of the iconoclastic icons in sports and within our community. And this is about business because we do talk
It is about business, Tom. It's a family-owned business. NASCAR is a family-owned business. It's always been. They've bought up their competition, which other family-owned businesses that are that large have done the same thing. If you want to compete or sell your product or participate in our business, then we have some rules. And the NASCAR family has some rules. You can't compete here and compete on other tracks with other racing organizations. So you have to pick one, either with us or you're against us. That's their rule. And as far as buying the parts, they do that and put a governor on the car to regulate, to make sure that no one has an advantage over anybody else. Everyone has about the same size engine. You buy the same parts. You don't have a strategic advantage because you can build a better, faster engine than everybody else. Everybody pretty much has the same engine. You have the same parts. So it doesn't give anybody an unfair advantage because you're able to build better spark plugs or get a better fuel injector or a heat exchanger. So that way, nobody has it really comes down to skill, and that's their product. Is that they put really fast cars on the track and skilled drivers. The technology in the cars doesn't give any one driver an advantage over anybody else. And after the race, they take those cars apart to make sure that they comply with their agreement. And Tom, if Michael Jordan and other race organizations don't like the rules, take a show on the road. So go someplace else, forge your own if that's the case. But this is their league that they started, that they invested heavily in and stood by and built it up. And now Michael come along and change the rules and say, hey, you got to operate different because I don't like how you doing things and structure because we don't have an advantage under these rules. What say you?
What I say is that just like AT&T, just like Google, just like other companies in the business realm, I do understand that you have a love for completely monopolistic, monolithic business entities. But Jimmy, as it pertains to racing, as it pertains to even the NFL and the other sports that we love, usually you don't have one family, one owner who basically controls all factors, because the reality of it is it may sound nice and it may sound like everything is on an even ground. But Jimmy, when you have one company, one organization who controls all factors of production, that usually does not turn out so well for the consumers, in this
It turned out great for NASCAR consumers. What are you talking about, Tom? Those stadiums are packed. Nobody's complaining. Nobody but Michael Jordan is complaining.
Michael Jordan is Jimmy. Michael Jordan is not the only person complaining.
Okay, you got two companies that complain. Out of all the hundreds of NASCAR clubs out there, two of them are complaining. So what? In AT&T, Tom uses public services. They're regulated by public utilities, so they're different. But the Walmart family started Walmart, and they had rules and regulations. If you wanted to do business with them, they set the guidelines for how you did that and what they would accept. They didn't just open the doors to everybody. And nobody complained that it's not fair that Walmart won't sell my products or put my product on the shelf. You know, we need to change the rules because they're monopolistic. Yes, they're the largest retailer in the world. Amazon's the largest online retailer in the world, and they have rules and regulations behind how they
But Jimmy,
do
what would it
business.
look like if it was just Walmart? What would it look like if it was just Amazon? The point that he's
But
trying
it's
to
not,
make
that's the
is
point. Tom, is that people are free to go out and start their own to compete against these companies.
and maybe Jimmy, that well, ultimately that may happen. But what he's doing is he's giving an opportunity to say, "Hey, we're shooting the red flag right now." And the reality of it is, if we love this sport, we think it's best for there to be competition, and that not one family gets all the money, sharing the revenue, sharing the opportunity. Give us some say so in terms of some of the decisions, so at least we have some seats at the table. But if it's owned by one family, one person, that usually doesn't work out in the long term.
Tom, you saying usually don't work out, but NASCAR has been around for a very long time.
I
This
understand
is
that.
the way how they operate. So
I,
there
I,
may be an
I
exception.
understand that, Jimmy. Just because something's been around for a long time and that's always the way they've done things doesn't mean that it's.
Tom, and they haven't harmed the public. Those things, those race car tracks are filled. The sponsors are there. Look at those cars and all the sponsors tagged on them. Then who's losing money there? Nobody. What are the damages?
Jimmy,
What damages is Michael Jordan claiming for his
this is
organization?
Jimmy. This is the problem. When you have one organization, one person, one company, you have price fixing, you have controls. Again, that does not work out long term for the consumer. I
Okay,
understand
Tom,
how long for.
I'm going to share this with you, and I'm going to leave it because you don't see the fallacy.
I don't see it your way, but I see it.
You don't understand the fallacy in all of this, Tom. The problem with this is that if they were to prevail and they loosen up the rules, here's what's going to happen. All the NASCAR cars are going to be totally different. Everybody's going to have souped up engines, super injectors, coolers. You're going to have all kinds of things in their cars. And it's not going to come down to skill anymore. It's going to come down to who has a better car and has a better technology. And that's what it's going to come down to. And the lesser quality, with having a lesser quality driver and more technology in the cars, could result in more accidents, more people getting hurt. And you will see speeds. Right now, you already see speeds that are averaging over 200 miles an hour.
Agreed.
You may see speeds that go up to 300 miles an hour with better technology. Obviously, NASCAR is saying they don't want that. They want to keep speeds about where they are. They haven't really changed very much. Take a look at the progression from NASCAR to the speedster people, the quarter mile, the dragsters, the funny cars. That is totally different than NASCAR. You have free reign to build an engine as big as you want to, put whatever technology you want on it. And those cars are going from averaging 150 to 180 to I remember when they started breaking 200. Tom, funny cars now and dragsters are now hitting 300 miles an hour. And they want, because it's all down to not the drivers. They don't have to drive a quarter of a mile. It really comes down to the technology and the engine. And NASCAR said they don't want that. They want to keep the engine and the cars all about equal. And so you have to be a very skilled driver to win their races. Therein lies the difference. I don't see a problem with them wanting NASCAR to be about skilled drivers and not about the cars. I mean, what if it was the NBA and I get to play, one team gets to play with a ball that pretty much they can't miss with, and the other team plays with the regular NBA ball? And you say, well, force us to play with that.
Apples and oranges, Jimmy.
You put them at a disadvantage.
Apples and oranges. Apples and oranges.
Oh, apples and oranges. Okay.
Yeah, and we're at 8:59, Jimmy, so we're pretty much out of time. But America, I'm the one who talks too long. I'm the one that talks too long.
Yes, Tom, you need to work on that.
All right, Jimmy, we've got 1 minute
what
left.
story did we get to this week that
we did not get to the ex-Memphis officers who were found guilty in witness tampering with the Tyre Nichols case.
Tom, I'm going to say one thing on that one, and I'll be quiet. This is why I continue to say, do not run away from cops. Don't be belligerent. Be respectful. If you think they violated the rules, get their name, get their badge. I'm gonna file a complaint.
It's kind of hard to do that when you get dragged out of a car and then beat to death.
Yeah, well, I know, Tom. This is why I say do your
it's
best.
It's hard to get anybody's badge numbers when you're dragged out of a car and beat to death because you actually happen to speed up to run a stoplight, which practically everybody does.
Okay, Tom, well, you're not listening to what I'm saying because you want to make this to a victim.
Oh,
He was victimized.
I don't listen now.
What I'm saying is that this was on tape. This was videotape. And the best they could do was 3 convictions for witness tampering and 1 conviction on a civil rights violation. In a couple of years, all of these officers will be moving on their way while that guy, poor guy, is graveyard dead. Do your absolute best to stay alive, diffuse the situation, do not run from these people, do not give them a reason to drag you out of the car, to pull their gun out, to put their hands on you. Do your absolute best to keep it peaceful as best you can. It's not always possible, but do your best to make sure that you live, follow the complaint, and tell your story. Because else, you may end up dead. They may end up in jail for a year or 2, and but they get to move on with their lifetime when this is all over. He is graveyard dead. So that being said, we'll cover the story in more detail next week.
That's fine. That's fine. And there are always, unfortunately, Jimmy, in this country or globally, 2 sets of rules, even for folks who say like this, and then they still get shot unarmed.
Okay, Tyre doesn't happen 2 million with 20 million encounters, but we'll talk about it next week.
All right, that sounds good, folks. We want to thank you for joining the show tonight. We appreciate your support, and of course, if it is Wednesday nights,
Back next week.
all righty. Have a good night, everyone.